So this is the Haiti mission team. There were 11 of us all told who went, and I'll allow them to speak for themselves.
Okay, there we go. So excuse me, my notes are on the phone. I'm really not like texting as I talk. Bonjour, by the way. So this was my fourth trip to Haiti, and wasn't sure if I wanted to go. In fact, I said I wasn't going to go again, but there I went. And I came away as touched as I was the first time. It is, the song just, said, break my heart as people break God's heart. It is amazing. But having said that, there were amazing differences. One of the first I can think of is the church. The first time we went to their church, it was a little rough. It was hot. We sat on benches. The church is great this year. It's huge. It's got a balcony, like ours. I didn't check the seats to see if they were a little more accommodating than sometimes ours are, but it was really good. Pastor John, or John number 1, as you can now refer to him, we had 3 Johns, so we had to designate them, and of course, John became John number 1. With his leadership, we had a great team. We laughed a lot. We worked really hard. We laughed a lot. I mentioned we laughed a lot. We sang, and we accomplished a great deal the whole time we did it. In some ways, this trip was different than any of the others. We stayed at the Heart to Heart Orphanage, and the folks were very accommodating. The food was awesome, but a little trouble with the electricity the first 2 days, as in we didn't have any. No electricity means no fans, let alone air conditioning, which we had at the other compound that we stayed at. Good thing we were really tired the first 2 nights because we hit the sack, I think, 8:30 or so, and everybody was out. This was the first year that we had to worry about mosquitoes and netting. Netting is pretty bothersome to getting in and out of it, but at least you feel safe when you're underneath it. We built a house again this year, but we hauled concrete blocks in mortar instead of rubble. It's not necessarily a bad thing. We worked with the kids at the orphanage we stayed at, and this is what really touched my heart, because if you go into a school with the kids and you see the moms and dads sitting with them helping to color, we saw that at the orphanage. I never expected to see dads in Haiti sitting with their kids helping them color. It just truly touched my heart. Just amazing. We went up to the mountain to the Lavange School and worked with the kids there one morning, which was truly an awesome sight. The trip was something that you have to experience. It was off-roading in a tap-tap with 11 people, and it was rough. If you think 7 creeks, multiply that by 10. Up the riverbed, through the river. At times, John and I were blessed, I think, to sit in the front seat, and just weren't sure where he was going to go with that truck. It just didn't seem possible. But it was truly good. The kids were awesome. We took them crafts. We took them little visors that they decorated. Some folks donated dresses, so we had over 100 dresses for the little girls. John donated the T-shirts, JBC T-shirts, so we had T-shirts for all the boys, and it was truly a blessing to see these kids. There were 146 there. They were pleased. Someone sent with the little dresses little stuffed kitties. You'd have thought it was the new electronic toy that was out for these little girls. It was awesome. So it was a great week. Thanks to everybody for your prayers and your support. We truly appreciated it.
Go for it, Ace. This is my grandson, just for those of you who don't know him, Asa Bonner. I should introduce everybody. Jonathan Johnson is the third person who is actually the moderator of First Baptist Church in Waynesburg, was gracious enough to come down and join us for this. Laura, who sang in Virginia Williams. We had the privilege of baptizing at Bridget's house earlier this summer, but who often works and is rarely with us here on Sunday morning. So take it away, Ace. Sorry.
Going to Haiti was really a blessing for me to get to come down here and take off some time from my daily life and my schoolwork. It was really fun to get to go with all these great people and experience the culture there. And a few of my favorite moments from my time there was I brought some soccer balls. I de-inflated them and put them in my bag and brought them there and pumped them up. And I brought 3 and John brought 1. And I had a really fun time giving those out. I gave one to the orphan kids who I actually one day me and my dad thought maybe we should go play soccer with them. Well, they were really good. It was just amazing how good they were. Like, and they had no shoes on, and they were just awesome. We played on it was like a basketball court, but the goals had like never been used, so they're all rusty. And they had these like 2 by 1 foot soccer goals that were like this big. It was hard to score them, but they didn't have a hard time doing that. It was really fun giving a soccer ball to the orphanage, and they were just so thankful. I gave one away to the kids of the grandmother whose house we were working on. We were playing soccer on like this. When we were hauling the mortar and stuff, there was like a super steep hill. It was treacherous, but we played some soccer off to the side, when we had our break time, and that was really fun. And Grandpa gave one to his friend Magnell's kids, who's a guy in a wheelchair. I don't know if you've heard about him, but you might say more about that later. And the last one we gave to one of my dad's befriended a man named Excellence. My dad speaks pretty much fluent French because he went to France and a bunch of times. And French is really helpful because it's very similar to Creole. So next to Tiga, our leader, he was like the second most helpful guy because he could like communicate if we ever got in trouble and we didn't know what they were saying. It was just really fun for me to go to Haiti and have like a turning experience for me, and get to see how much they just loved and adored each other. And maybe the main thing I took home from that trip is that we had to focus on thinking about the similarities in people rather than the differences, like how we all want to have relationships and be loved and, stuff like that. And instead of looking at how we're Americans and we have all this and they don't, just think about the similarities of life. So that's what I took home from the trip.
When I'm done, I swear Asa and I didn't correspond before this. I'm Jonathan Johnson, or affectionately known as John number 3 on the trip. Obviously, we know who John number 1 was. We had John Cole, who was John number 2. So that's how we introduced ourselves at our time in Haiti. I believe it's Matthew 13 that talks about a guy that gets a taste of the kingdom of heaven, and then he sells everything he has to get the kingdom of heaven. When I reflect upon my time, I think about the sacrifices that we all made in getting to Haiti, whether it be financial, taking time off from work. Our families sacrificed. There's a lot that we gave to get down there, such as hot water and clean bathrooms. Those things that we just don't necessarily think about how blessed we are each and every day. But one of the things that I wanted to share with you guys, on the second day, the first day we busted it pretty hard. We poured the foundation, so that treacherous hill that Asa was talking about, we carried buckets of cement up throughout the day, and probably the next morning it was kind of like, wow, I think I worked a little too hard yesterday. I probably should have paced myself. But tired, a little bit just worn down that second day. And we start passing block, and there was a young man next to me, and I was tired, and the thought in my mind was, do I really want to try to bridge this communication barrier right now? I'm kind of tired, I'm a little bit weary. Do I really want to go through the trouble of starting this conversation or attempting to? And after getting past myself and kind of pushing through and beginning this conversation with this young man named Edmund, Edmund enjoyed laughing at me for a while as I, butchered the French Creole language. But as time went on, we began to laugh together. And at that point, that's when it was no longer American, Haitian, black, white, rich, poor. We were brothers in Christ that were working selflessly for something greater than either of us. That is something that I held on to the whole time I was there, was holding on to the likenesses, not the differences. In the midst of working with a work crew and watching husbands and wives talk together, I thought, boy, we're really not that different. There are a lot of similarities here. But I just want to thank John number 1 for prompting me to go on this trip, and I thank so much to this wonderful group of people that I got to spend a week with, that it feels like now we know each other as if we've known each other a very long time. It was just a fantastic experience, and I feel blessed and humbled, and all praise to God.
To say that I was hesitant to go to Haiti is an understatement. I think John started prodding me around Thanksgiving, and on Christmas Eve, he came up to my mom and said, 3 words for you, Laura in Haiti. And that pretty much sealed the deal. I decided to go. I had the time to take off of work, and I thought, I need this trip to, I said, melt the ice that had formed around my heart from just working every day and not really being able to give as much as I wanted to. And I've done mission trips throughout high school and college, so I really needed this to kind of jumpstart me again. And I'm also a terrible traveler, as everyone on the stage can attest to. I do not fly well. I'm overwhelmed in large crowds. It wasn't pretty at the airport. So thanks for everyone for putting up with me at the airport. But I didn't know what to expect in Haiti. The night before I left, I was kind of having a meltdown. I was telling my mom, I was like, what if we stay in like a plywood building? Or how am I going to call you every day and tell you what we did? And she said, well, I think it'll be good for you, Laura. I think you need this, which was true. And I thought John wouldn't take us anywhere that wasn't safe, or I was hoping. And that was the case. We got to the Port-au-Prince airport, and as I had heard, it was absolute chaos we were walking through a tunnel of people trying to navigate and find Tiga, and I asked John, I was like, oh, what kind of car are we going to take to get to the compound? He's like, well, I don't really know. It could be anything. So this tap pulls up, and he's like, oh, that's what we're taking. And I thought, oh man, this is going to be really exciting. And I actually loved the tap ride, the first one. The other ones were got a little nauseous, but we got to the compound, and I was relieved to see that it had very high walls, a barbed wire, a gate. I was like, oh, I can do this. This is okay. And then the no power thing happened. And like Bridget said, it's 8:30. We're like, well, nothing else to do. Time to go to bed. And working on the house, I knew we were doing the cinder block house, and I kind of had a negative thought in my head about myself. I'm like, with these olive oil arms, how am I going to lift buckets of mortar and blocks of cinder? And it was amazing how when you're working together to accomplish something, all that kind of goes out the window. I had buckets of cement on my shoulder, and they were leaking down into my hair and my ear on my shirt, and I didn't care. We just kept pushing until we got the foundation laid, and then the same with building the actual house. We worked so well together, and Bridget even said at one point during the week, it's so nice to hear the encouragement that's being passed back and forth. We would pass a brick and say, oh, are you doing okay? Or we would carry a bucket up and say, do you need help? Or just saying, oh, great job, you're doing great, keep it up. And Asa was my man at the top of the treacherous hill. We were somehow stationed up there for most of the second day. And he was such a trooper. Everything I passed him, he took, and I was like, are you all right, Asa? He's like, oh yeah, I'm fine, this is great. So I think one of my favorite takeaways was when we went to the school on the mountain. And we, like Bridget said, we did crafts with the kids, and we passed out the foam visors. And we each kind of there were 5 classrooms, and there were 2 of us to each classroom. And I handed a visor to this little girl, and she grabbed my face, said merci, and kissed me on the cheek. And I just thought, do you want to come home with me now? This is so precious for a foam visor. It's amazing how much they appreciate even the littlest things. And I could not be more blessed to have the group that we worked with, even the Haitians. It was amazing how well we all worked together. And everyone except Bridget and John were strangers to me. And like Jonathan said, by the end of the week, I was so excited to come to church because I was like, I get to see my mission trip friends. This is awesome. And so I just feel extremely, extremely blessed for the work, and I am ready to go back. At work on Thursday, they said, would you go back next year? And I said, I would go back right now. They need so much help, and being able to see the look on Grandma's face when we finished the house was something I'll never forget. So it was awesome. And if you ever want to go to Haiti, I strongly encourage it because it is the best thing that could probably ever happen to you.
All right, hi. I just want to start by saying, I wrote the stuff down because I feel like I'll, rattle on if I don't. So, I'm still very new to the Christian way of life, but fortunately, God has put two people in my life who have not only brought me to the faith, but continue to be there for me in the struggles with trying to be the person that Jesus wants me to be. So I have to take a quick moment to thank Bridget and John because I'm sure I've not made this easy at all. Right? That's testimony right there. So, my first trip to Haiti was about 4 years ago. The year before, Bridget had went on her first trip and brought back some pictures and told me what you guys as a church was trying to accomplish. And I told her, if you go next year, I want to go. And sure enough, she did. And then in comes John into my picture. I start here because I want to paint a bigger picture. I got to say that I really don't know how John does it, but all 3 trips I've been on, we have had like an instant team. And you can work with people for years and not have the teamwork we've seemed to accomplish immediately. And I got to believe most of that is in part to John's passion for faith and the leadership, quite frankly. So every night, John would ask us about his God sightings, which I like to refer to as points of light. I know that Haiti has a long way to go, but I'd like to share with you some of the points of light / God sightings that may give hope from reflection on the time that I've spent down there this last week. My first trip, before we got out of Port-au-Prince, most of the vendors were exposed to the sun and the light, as was their product and everything. We drove by like a large section of makeshift tents, what people were actually living in. Both bridges were out. The road, it wasn't a road. When we got to Grand Guave, it was the same. There was a big open area, about 3/4 filled with the same type of living in Port-au-Prince. There were children unclothed, dirty, and clearly lacking food. You may have seen 6 to 10 kids in uniforms with ages ranging dramatically from 4 to 14. That's for the schoolings. The few churches we saw weren't really even buildings. There were a few places that looked like there was an attempt for reconstruction, but pretty much everywhere you looked was rubble, destruction, and for the most part, despair. So now fast forward 4 years. We leave Port-au-Prince Airport, and there is a road all the way to Grand Guave. The 2 new bridges are completely built. A lot of the vendors have shelter or huts formed for their product. Groups of 20 to 25 students walk the streets, which would seem to be more age consistent. Numerous churches and actual buildings. We saw constructions of houses and buildings were everywhere you looked. On Sunday, we saw more Haitians dressed to look their best, which I hope I can assume means they were all going to church. I didn't see one home that was made with the tarps and sticks. There were still the Good Samaritan houses, but for the most part, it was starting to look like a city again. The large piece of land in Grand Guave is now soccer fields. The majority of the kids were completely clothed, and the ones that weren't, I think, were just by choice. they looked healthier, and I didn't see skin and bones, and the expanded stomach that shows malnutrition. So I just think you have to look at the bigger picture and not just the last week we were down there, because otherwise it's overwhelming and bleak. But if you look at the last 4 years, I got to say that what we are going for as a church, I think we are accomplishing. We may only have built one house this last year, but I still feel that our presence is noticed and does have an effect. To end, I'd like to thank the support I got from the church that allowed me to go to the Haiti trip. It's truly a blessing for me. I got so much out of it, and a sense of accomplishment and value that I can't even explain. And finally, I'd like to thank our team. It was an honor working with these guys, and memories that I'll have forever. So that's it.